I know that's not right. I used to work here. Well, things change. Sorry they didn't run it by you first. You used to work here. Well, I used to be happy. Then you walked in.
All aboard!
Outdoor service owners, rise and shine. It's time to start fueling your success one adventure at a time. Welcome to Outdoorsy Entrepreneur, brought to you by Big Tuna Websites, where business owners come and learn and explore ways to take charge and level up. Today, we're talking about under-promising and yet over-delivering. I'm here with your host, Patrick Harders, and join us on this journey every Wednesday. Like, comment, subscribe on our YouTube channel, and listen to wherever you go, get your podcast. What's going on today, Pat?
Hey, doing well. Getting ready. Last final wrestling tournament, which is a crazy one. I'm coming down to your neck of the woods, and nonstop action. Business has picked up, which is good. It's always that October time for us that
Nice.
leads are coming in, jobs are closing, arguing with customers, all the fun stuff that you deal with on a daily basis.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, fall season's a great time for people to get back out in their yards and decorate and get ready for holidays, and kids are back in school.
Schedules get normal. Sun starts setting for the lighting world. I'll show you that.
Sweet.
That was last night. We had the Borealis out, which was pretty cool to see that popping out.
Oh, nice.
So,
What's
yeah.
that, like a
Right.
star?
No, it's the Northern Lights. Finally
That's
made
right.
it down far enough. So, yeah,
Okay.
pretty cool. We don't get it that often in Virginia, here and there.
Okay. Speaking of Virginia, check out this new spooky card I just got. He's from your neck of the woods, Pat.
Ah, nice. You
Sean
collect
Taylor.
cards?
Yeah,
That's
man,
an
I'm a
old
big
one.
Sean Taylor, baby. He was
Yeah.
one of the GOATs back in the day, and
Had
just got
the-
that
the-
in yesterday.
Greatest Pro Bowl hit of all time, crushing that one kicker that he just like leveled.
Yeah. All right, so
I'm
let's
old.
talk about it. What do you think, Pat? Under promising and over delivering. What do you think?
You got to do it, but boy, it's hard because we become like Tommy Boy out there, where we're so excited to get our little sale, and we're willing to do anything, and all of a sudden we start saying something, and it's like, what the hell did I just say here? Like, and it's funny, like the jobs that I've got myself in the most trouble with are always the ones that we're going outside of our scope, where I'm like, oh yeah, we could do that, no problem, and then all of a sudden it's like me doing it, and
Yeah.
it kills you.
feel-
It takes twice as long. Nobody's really happy. So it's so important to know your limitations to a degree. Like, there are times you got to push yourself. Like our first time going 50 feet up in a tree, I'm like, I don't think we could do it. Then we did it, and I'm like, that wasn't that bad. So it's like, when do you have the wisdom to try something new and different and go out there? But the other times is like when you're making promises and
Like the salesman or yourself will sell something and add something to the sale. And then
Yep.
you go to the foreman once he started and you say, hey, Bobby, by the way, we're going to do this and that. And he's like, what, are you crazy?
we're going to extend all the beds 6 inches for 50
Yeah.
feet.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
well, that's a
okay.
half a day job.
I know.
Like,
No, it's
yeah.
okay, Bobby. It's no big deal.
Not a big deal. Yeah. And
Right.
like when we're doing it, it's like, when it was just me doing it, it's like, oh, I could do it. And I didn't mind like putting in the extra time and we're out there later. When it's 6 guys you're paying to do things like that, that's a whole different story. But it's important of like keeping your composure, your confidence, the best thing I ever heard in sales is like, don't be afraid. And what would you do if you had $1 million in your pocket? So if you had $1 million in the bank account, what would your attitude be? You'd calm down a lot. But it's a lot of times like, oh, we needed to get the sale because we had this coming up, or sales were a little slow. So then all of a sudden you're extending yourself beyond what you're really great at. And then you run into trouble doing that. So it's better just to keep yourself really calm. Don't drink too much coffee, whatever it is, to like calm yourself down and head off issues early. Like even just going like, hey, we could do a change order for that. That's an important thing on why we need contracts, to protect the customer, to protect ourselves.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, to make this change, because you get job creep a lot, you get things that happen. But ultimately, you want to have it where it's like, hey, we could get this installed in the next 2 weeks, knowing I could maybe get it done in a week. I'm not going to say, I'm going to get it done in 4 days, where I just put so much more pressure on ourselves.
There you go.
And and kind of just setting expectations and like you said, the under promising. So if I know I could do it in 7 days, I might tell them 2 weeks, and it's better to get the good news call than the, hey, we got held up because of rain, the hurricanes are coming through, whatever. So then everybody, like, you're chasing everything and
Yeah.
stressed and
I think,
dealing with that.
under promising goes everywhere. It sets realistic expectations, it avoids overcommitment, and it
Yeah.
builds your credibility along the job. So, like, when people say, okay, when do you think you could get to the job? And I always tell people, as soon as we get a contract signed and deposits in, we usually schedule 2, 3 weeks, whatever that window is that you have.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we can do it sooner, but I don't want to tell them that until after they've signed up.
Yeah.
And then once they
Yeah.
signed up, they can get a nice phone call a week ahead saying, hey, we can get you in a week ahead of schedule. What do you think? And a lot of times they're pleased with that. So it adds like a free pleasure to
Yep.
your job.
It's all in the phrasing. I think a lot of it is your attitude. Like when I started off, I looked young. Like nobody knew who owned the company. They'd go to my employees and be like, "Who's in charge here?" I'm like, "I own the company." I looked like I was about 15 years old, and so it's like calming down, I guess. But it's like my expectation and my setting now is like I'm my customer's peer. I'm on the same level as them. I'm a professional. I've had that talk with customers where they're like, well, you charge a lot per hour. I'm like, well, there's like two of us maybe in the city that could do what I could do. So if that's the case, like he was an attorney, I'm like, how many attorneys could I call if I have a legal dispute? 1,000? How many great
Right.
lighting guys can I call? 2.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
and he was funny. He's like, I should have gone into lighting. I'm like, yeah.
Okay.
But spending 20 years of your life dedicating to a profession, becoming really good at something, and that's what we always talk about, leveling up, so that you are one of the best. But then, just setting all the expectations. I think one area that we get in trouble as business owners is just making ourselves always available to our customers. So when you're getting that phone call at 8:30 at night, at the beginning, I'd always answer and like, what's going on? Oh, you have one light out, and talking over a half hour and trying to enjoy time with the family. So it's like just setting expectations. Like I'll get back to you tomorrow, or the office is the best place to call for service because I am the absolute worst person. Someone calls me up and they have a service call and it's like, oh yeah, I'll tell Karen, and then I forget all about it.
She's already gone for the day. And
Yeah, she's gone for the day, and then a week later, it's like, Pat, you forget about me. I'm like, I
holding the bag.
sure did. It's all that expectation you're building. Even when the service call comes in, we haven't scheduled, like the routes or anything. So I just tell people we're going to put you on a queue, and say like, hey, we want to get to every service call within 48 hours, which is our expectation. But if we can't do that, we might turn to the 72. But we're going to put you in the queue as soon as we get the routes all figured out. We'll give you a call. We'll notify you first thing in the morning. But it is building that in. And, a lot of the CRMs also can help you a ton on this, notifying customers when the tech leaves, notifying them when they've arrived at the job. Like those are things that are just automatic that can help you out. So you're not doing as much labor of, calling every customer on the way. And
facet in, like, say, the fast food industry.
yeah, you have an expectation on when you're going to McDonald's. You're like, hey, this is not going to be a great meal.
I know. But like, say Five Guys. So if
Yeah.
you order fries, they have 3 sizes in their cups, and they're
Yeah.
not that very different in size,
Yeah.
but they stuff them full. And if you get fries, no matter which size cup you get, they pour in twice as much into the bag in addition to your size you ordered.
Yeah.
So that's over delivering on your experience there, right? So you got, wow, look at all these fries. Holy crap.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps people coming back is they underpromised and over-delivered on that order.
Oh yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Although it's like 20 bucks to get a hamburger,
I
but
know. Yeah.
you do get the, those little treats. It's always the fries in the bottom of the bag are always better anyway, because you think you're out and all of a sudden you find
I
those
mean,
extra ones. It's like,
Yeah, like McDonald's, you find one fry and you're like, holy crap, one fry
yeah,
extra.
one left.
Yeah. But another thing we do, like in landscape world with plants, so we spec a job, especially if it's not like an architectural, I have to have this exact size job and it's our own
Hmm.
design. what we'll do is we'll spec like a 6 foot, we'll say 6 to 7 juniper.
Yeah.
And a lot of times what I do is I overprice, not overprice, but I put the very peak at the nursery price because I want to get a 7 footer
Yeah.
just in case something may not work out and I've got room to come back down to my 6 promise. So
Yeah.
a lot of times I'll put the nice ones in and then they're like, "Oh, wow, that was bigger than I thought it would be." So it's nice to have these little bit of ups, especially on the ornate and the very special trees that are going into the landscape plan that they're going to notice the focal points,
Yeah.
the focal
Well,
point
it's like
plants.
planting the trees. It's if you're selling it as a 5 to 6 foot tree and it's always coming in barely making 5 feet,
Right.
if you know that's going to happen, go to the smaller size, say, 4 to 5 feet, and then
There
you
you go.
deliver a 5 to 6 foot. So it's
There
like,
you go.
building an expectation, because if, whatever the customer hears, so they hear 5 to 6 feet, they're going to be expecting it
6.
to be 6, maybe even a little bit more, like the fries in the bag. So,
Mhm.
they hear that the higher number, and if you come in at 411, they're like, yeah, I guess you barely made it. So, or you
That's
didn't.
right. I think that's huge in our business is to whenever you're thinking about your contracts, your sales, what are you putting in the verbiage that's going
Hmm.
to be held to you and the customer. So make sure that you have really detailed verbiage. But when you're talking with customers, that you always add a buffer on timelines and uh, materials and all this stuff. So you have a buffer to come back to and over deliver upon,
Yeah.
like hardscapes and stuff. And a lot of times I'll be designing a patio and I'll see this little cool area that could be added to, say, like an extra curve or a little trash can area that we could put some pavers under. A lot of times I'll add that to the job estimate. I won't tell them about it, and then we'll do it, and then we'll surprise the heck out of them with that little bonus feature we just put in.
Yeah. And like one thing we do renderings for our projects. We used to do demos where you'd set up lights, and doing any of that, I always wanted to look not quite as good. Like we could try and make that rendering look perfect, but then when they get the final project and the rendering, I'd rather have the rendering look a little bit worse versus the other way around where it's like, oh, your rendering made it look perfect, spectacular, no
Right.
shadows, like. And so we purposely, when we do a rendering, is we'll actually build it out a little bit less, maybe not quite as bright, maybe creating more shadows in it. And then when we do it, it comes out better. So I always tell customers like,
Hmm.
oh, the renderings are good. It gives you a concept, but
Right.
the actual job is going to look better. Just like showing photographs, if you're highly doctoring your photographs and it's not realistic,
Right.
they get the final project and they're like, well, how come it doesn't look like X? And so,
That's a problem with landscape designs too, because landscape design software, all the plants you put in the picture have flowers.
yeah.
And that's
Oh,
never the
yeah.
case when they get put in. They look like little dwarf, all green, leafy things, not this big, beautiful pink flowering full
Yeah.
azalea.
Or all these people hanging around the patio. And they don't have any friends. So it's like they're never going to have people on there.
All
So,
those 3D characters walking around aimlessly.
yeah.
Oh my
Yeah. So putting
goodness.
expectations on that and not trying to make everything look better than it will in reality. And, just understanding that, like, you have to have the mindset of, like, I would rather promise a little less on the sales side and deliver more than if you go the other way, you have a lot of trouble and a dissatisfied customer that just doesn't have that good taste in their mouth. But, I think what you said is a great thing as well is, when we're on a design, if I need to add one light, I'm going to add one light. And I just left downstairs and I was at a job yesterday, beautiful project. I added one light and I just wrote the customer like, hey, you needed one more. I'll give you 50% off it. And he
Yeah.
called and complained. He's like, I didn't agree to that. I'm like, don't worry about it. It's free. Like,
Okay.
you needed it for your job in order to complete it. In my mind, I
Yeah.
didn't want it to not be finished. And if I have to pay
Right.
for it, I will, which
Yeah.
isn't going to kill me when I just look at product costs and it was 2 minutes of work extra to do it right. But those little things that you can do,
Adds up.
can really make a big difference.
Hell yeah,
But don't
man.
get yourself in trouble because, For a long time, I was the worst person in my company to go out and do a service call because I do it for free. I just was like, hey, don't worry about it. No charge on this one. And I do that 2 or 3 times. Then when I send a guy and they get $180 charge, they're like, I want Pat to come out because he doesn't charge me.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, no good deed goes unpunished.
They'll get tied to you big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys. So just make sure under promise, over deliver. It makes the customers happier at the end. They thought they were going to get a 6 foot and you brought in a 7, or you added a little bit of extra square footage to your jobs, or an extra light, like Pat mentioned.
Payment's a huge thing. Yeah. Just telling customers how you're expecting payment. Like I tell my customers, like, as soon as the job is done, we're going to, your payments due, either check there, we'll run your credit card. As soon as the guys are completed, after that, it's all maintenance. It's all covered under warranty and everything. Like, we're not going anywhere. We've been here 25 years. But the worst thing is when you have bills here and then you have like accounts receivable and you're trying to run after customers. So it's like, even on the sales process, explaining like, we'll take a deposit and we'll take the payment as soon as the job's done or the next morning. So it's not this drawn out thing. Like, as soon as the customer is happy with everything, then they'll make the final payment. And just getting out of those issues so you could get your money in quicker, because it doesn't do you have any well to have receivables out there.
Yeah, and even something as simple as lawn mowing, and people think that, I don't need a contract or an agreement for lawn mowing. But just imagine or if you leave a door hanger and don't even talk to them and write something down. Hey, this is going to be 45 a trip. They pick up the door hanger, call you. Hey, I'm at 14 something, whatever street. Let's go with that 45. And you start doing it. And then she said, oh, well, you're not edging the beds. Oh, man, that's not included. It's just lawn mowing. Well, no, my previous guy edged my beds, weeded my beds, and he was $40 flat. And I wanted to pay you 45 because he wasn't doing a good job. So you can get into trouble because they have an expectation of what your service is supposed to be, and you have an expectation of what it's to be. Those two need to come together.
They need to come together. And it's hard, especially when somebody is stretching to pay. I've always found that's my hardest customers, when somebody really is like, I thought the lighting project was going to be $3,000. You're charging me $7,000. I'm going to do it, but boy, and then they just want everything like over the top. Like, hey, can you change out my security lights? Can you do this? Can you do that? And it's like, no, setting that expectation right at the beginning, having that tougher conversation. But how do you present your contract? Because I think that's an important conversation of like, why do you have a contract? Like when you're talking to a customer, like they may be dealing with a lawn guy. They're dealing with some dude that's just like, yeah, I'll come out every Wednesday. I'll cut the grass. But then, they don't always come every Wednesday. Everybody wants Friday when grass cutting. That's the hard part of that business. But, it's like explaining to the customer, like, I have a contract just so we have everything written down, and it's for your protection as much as mine. Yeah. So it's, for a long time I did a handshake deal. I got burned a couple times, nothing bad.
Right.
But, to the customer, it's like, I want to put it down in writing, just like anything you're going to have. And it's really for your protection. So if I'm not meeting this contract, then you and I can have a talk.
I think even with mowing, it's a great idea to have some simple agreement. It doesn't have to be a big lawyer riddled, detailed thing, but just say, hey, you're scheduled, in our contracts, what we say to residential, we say, we work Monday through Fridays, and your home will be visited the same day every week, but we do not reserve specific days of the week. So we go ahead and tell them that at the beginning paragraph, that based on once you sign up, we then look at our routing to see where you'd be most efficient in our route to be placed. Now, if it's a high-end client that they're going to be picky, or they mentioned a certain day, sure, you're going to make accolades to get them into that position. But for the most part, these mow blow goes, sometimes it has to be Mondays and it has to be Tuesdays and all that stuff. So
I had a Christmas business for a while, which I hated. But I'm talking to a good friend, and I'm like, the hardest thing about it is, when does everybody want their Christmas lights put in? They want them in the day after Thanksgiving. And like a friend of mine who's a great business guy, runs like a $50 million siding and window company. He's like, oh, that's the easiest thing to solve in the world. Like, these are our premium spots, which everybody wants. Everybody wants the day after Thanksgiving. So this price is X if you want it. So it's just like everybody wants their grass cut on Friday afternoon.
Okay.
They want to come home for the weekend. It looks perfect. And if like a good friend of mine got out of the lawn business because he's like, I just hated, if we had a rainy day on Friday, we're working Saturday, everybody wanted Friday. We were like doing nothing on Monday, Tuesday. And it's like, well, just going to the concept of like explaining to the customer, I have 50 people that all want Friday. The only way I could do that is Friday's date's going to be X, but Monday or Tuesday, you could save some money if we do it that way.
So yeah, under promising, over delivering, and you'll have happier customers at the end. They'll in turn talk about you online on their groups, pages, and get you more business down the road. And oh man, Jimmy, he did this, and he also did this for me, and I didn't even ask for it. He just knew I needed it. And those are nice surprises that people love to see, especially when they're paying a lot of money for our services out there. Start looking for things that you could add on that won't be nothing to you to do it, but don't tell them about it. That's your like surprise factor, thank you factor.
Give yourself some room to be able to do nice things. And ultimately, like your biggest thing is if they're willing to pay enough for it, you're happy. I think a lot of businesses, we get upset because we're not getting the money we want out of it, and it's a demanding customer, and it's hard, and all these other things. So we have a bad attitude going into it. But if you kind of build that into it to say, this is our basic package, do this, this, and this is going to cost extra, and the customer can choose. And if they pay for it, great. A lot of tension goes away, and getting the payment when you need it, like right away after the job, makes a big difference. I'm amazed how many lawn guys that I've talked to that they're always like a month or 2 months behind where customers aren't paying. And it's like, I would rather set up an automatic payment, prepayment, something like that to get that money up front, because, that's, you want your money in your bank account, not sitting on your customer's countertop waiting for a check to come in.
Thanks everybody for watching. This wraps up this episode, and let us know any things you're doing out there that's over delivering on your clients and how you do that. Because it's there's not one clear way, perfect way to do any of this. It's your own creativity as a business owner to come up with things and ways that you're wowing your customers. And it's all about keeping customers. It's that next day sale that you need. And you need to satisfy your customers so well that they broadcast you to others and make you stay in business for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But make sure you subscribe to the Outdoorsy Entrepreneur YouTube channel and hit those notifications, and follow us on our social media platforms at Outdoorsy Boss. And we can't wait to see everybody again next week. All right. See you guys.
Have a great week.
All aboard!